Hello, I'm Edward Asner. In the fall of 2001, the International Association of Machinists sought to capture the epic response of America's workers to the attacks of September 11th. The voices you'll hear, the faces you'll see, are not alone. Thousands of men and women worked right alongside them at Ground Zero and the Pentagon in the rescue, recovery, and rebuilding efforts. None of those interviewed thought of themselves as heroes. But theirs is a special kind of courage. Every day they go to work. Every day they use their skills. Every day they do what they do and prove what America is all about. September 11th reminds us that everyday heroes are as near as a next-door neighbor.
It was unbelievable what I saw there. As far as I could see behind me was done construction workers, welders, caterers, electricians. As far back as 34th Street, you had lines of people waiting to help.
I'll tell you, I'd never been so proud of the people I work with. We had 2,300 of our people working there, mainly hard hats. All the construction trade people were there. Hundreds and hundreds of people.
They were fighting their way to get in. They would have done anything to get in there to help those people, and I was never more proud to be a member of this organization. Never more proud.
You know, we feel that the firemen and police, it's their job probably to be there, but it's not a carpenter's job or a laborer's job to run down to a building that was blown up or on fire. But they didn't think about that. They just thought about their fellow workers and their fellow New Yorkers, and they went down to do everything they can do to help.
We came to record the stories of the working men and women who shared a sense of commitment, responsibility, and duty to their communities, fellow workers, and country. Many shared their experiences for the first time. Some, for the first time, revisited the site where they spent countless sleepless hours. Their grief expresses the anguish, sorrow, and resolve of a whole nation.
We were preparing for September 11th, which was the elections, the mayoral elections. We were doing some postering. It was 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm on the West Side Highway. It's a beautiful night. Everything is lit up, you know how New York is at night. And the only thing I see, the most dominant thing I see, is the World Trade Center.
It was kind of a happy day for us because my wife was on the ballot. She was running for judge. She later won the election.
I was with a group of EMTs and paramedics that were getting ready to help with campaign activities for the New York primary.
Election days are always very busy. It's always a big day for the union because we mobilize all our membership.
I was coordinating one of the city council races, the union response to that. That was out in Queens.
So I was up in the Bronx, weight footing and stuff.
The guy I was helping was a union president, and he was running for the city council.
So I just voted with my family, and I was on the way to work on the Long Island Expressway. And of course, like everyone else, I was bitching and moaning about traffic.
I had just gone in to vote, and I lived down by the World Trade Center, and I came out, and there were people there handing out palm cards for various candidates who I supported, so I told them I'd help them for a few hours.
I put up some posters right there at Trinity Church, right where everything happened. And I'm looking up, and wow, this is a huge place. And I'm thinking how awesome it is, and how it's been here forever.
And as I sat in that traffic, I stared off out to the left, which was where the World Trade Center was, at the skyline, and saw a plane out of place.
The next thing I know, I saw a plane flying over my head, and the plane was flying very low, and I was talking to this woman. I says, this guy must be crazy. I says, he's going to hit the building.
I heard the explosion, and immediately I thought it was a bomb.
Tower 1 was on fire. You could see debris flying off the building.
Tower 1 was engulfed in flames, heavy smoke coming out of the tower.
It was like surreal to see a plane flying into a building. It was like he didn't veer off, he didn't do anything, he just went straight into the building.
There seemed to be a controlled chaos as the police officers and firefighters and the Port Authority police officers, they were working, getting people out of the building.
Hundreds of people running out, clearing the area, telling people to get out.
The firemen are running into the building, bringing people out, police officers, the EMS workers were there. We were all at the base of these towers, across the street from these towers.
We had to be very careful because there was a lot of debris coming down, but there was also a lot of bodies coming down. There was people jumping, people falling.
Our thought was at the time is we have to get into that building and stop these people from jumping. We'll get to them. We'll get them out, one at a time, but we'll get them out. We've gone through this before.
One of the EMS chiefs grabs my partner and says, 18 Charlie, that's the unit we were. Come on, we're going in.
As we were going up the stairwells, the people were coming down, and they weren't in a state of panic. They were pretty orderly coming down the stairs. Some of them had water bottles, and they were offering us the water as they were going down, you know.
And we're entering Tower 1, and the last thing my partner told me was, we shouldn't be here.
A sound you never thought you'd take note of. The sound of another plane came, and then, as we know, that plane hit the South Tower. So about 20, 25 minutes again of controlled chaos, professionals, union people going, doing their job, and then there was 3 explosions.
And at that moment, you just heard this loud, rumbling noise, and we look up and you can just see this cloud coming down.
And the South Tower leaned forward and then came down like an accordion.
You look up and you see the tower tilt and the glass break off, and then the wave just start coming down. That's when you get really scared.
When the tower came down, it sounded like a freight train. It sounded like a freight train.
The ceilings came down. The whole building was shaking violently. Walls were cracking, the lights went out.
We were able to get into a corner of the building across the street, which was 3 of the walls. We were in that corner was glass. And while the debris was hitting us, you thought at the time, well, I might buy it today, but if it doesn't get worse than this, we'll be all right. But then the cloud came, the black cloud. It seemed like it rose from your feet and just enveloped you. And that's when you realized that you stopped breathing. Your family, your children run through your head, all the things. You wonder what happens. Well, that started happening. And I'll be the first one to say I've never been so scared in my life.
I hid under a table, and for about 5-10 minutes, just literally cried and prayed, you know, while all of this was coming down.
One of the police officers had the wherewithal and the thought of mind to shoot out the windows. So when the windows got shot out, that gave us the ability to get into the lobby across the way and for a second to be able to breathe. But then, of course, that cloud then followed us into that lobby.
I'm under this table, and you know, the debris flying, the smoke, it's totally pitch black. And after about 5 to 6, 7 minutes, however long, there was dead silence. Dead silence.
It seemed like it went on forever at that point. But then in hindsight, you found out that it only took 8 seconds for that tower to come down. You would never think that 110 stories of just one tower would come down in 8 seconds, but it did. It happened that quickly, but time started to go slow. You know, time was not part of your process during this crisis. It just got lost.
I happened to be trapped with about 3 other firemen, and we were just screaming on our radios, Mayday, Mayday, 1013, you know, we're trapped, what's going on?
We just got ourselves together and went back into the stairwell, and there's still people coming down the stairs, so we just kept assisting these people down to the plaza, the mall level, to get them out of the building.
Fortunately for us, a wall had collapsed, which we were able to climb out into the streets. And I didn't even know I was in the streets until I walked into a light pole. That's how black and dark it was.
You could hardly see. You really could hardly see. There was water from, I guess, the sprinklers was pouring down the stairs. But for the most part, the people, you know, they were determined that they were going to come out. And for the most part, they did.
And we walked about a block and a half towards the waterway. And at that time, all these little boats were coming over from Jersey. And we were just putting people, patients, you know, Billy and I helped a fireman who had lost all his fingers and put him on this boat. And Billy got on the boat because he was disorientated. I put a captain of mine on the boat. And at that moment, you hear that same sound again, that rumbling freight train, eerie. And behind us, the tower that we were in starts coming down.
Everything just went black. For myself, when I was laying on the floor, this thunderous crashing going on around you. You could feel stuff piling up on your back. And myself, I said, well, I guess this is it for me. And I said goodbye to my wife and my kids. And I was basically ready to go. And I was just waiting for something to hit me. And all of a sudden, as quick as it came, it stopped, and there was dead silence.
It was pitch black. You couldn't see anything. You could feel the heat. We didn't have time for put our masks on and everything, so we would take a real good mouthful of everything that came down. I really thought it was, you know, it was over. I thought it was the end.
And then I started hearing and feeling everybody moving around amongst us, calling out, you know, grabbing onto each other, you know. Figured, you know, we got some kind of a chance here.
I feel like if I was in there, I want someone to try to save me, so that's what I was thinking when I went in there. I mean, you taking those, you know, just to try to save lives the best you can. I really didn't think about me. I was just trying to get the people out. And I think most people that went in weren't thinking about themselves.
It wasn't a job at that point. It was a duty, an obligation. I don't know, calling. It was something that you have to.
Well, the Pentagon is like 5 giant high-rises laying on its side, 6.6 million square feet of office space. So, you know, you get a firing structure that big, you've got a huge fire. But along with that, it was also an airplane crash and a building collapse, as well as a crime scene and a terrorist act. So you can plan on worst-case scenario, maybe 2 of those things happening at once. But to have, you know, 5 of those things happen at one time was an extreme event to handle.
There wasn't any time to think. You just had to react. We were one of the first medics on the scene, and we were expecting mass casualties, hundreds of people. So we immediately got the oxygen bottles out. It was time to go to work.
I'm 6'5", and I felt the need to duck. I thought sure it was coming right over my head. I saw a shadow, then I heard a noise. That's when I ducked and saw the plane go into the Pentagon.
I heard Merlin screaming that he saw a plane hit the Pentagon, and with that, I just took off and started responding to his location.
And I was told there were people inside. I got back and told my dispatcher that I was going in.
I was listening for Merlin because I heard him screaming on the radio that he was going in, that there were people in there.
And the walls were caving in, and the ceiling had fallen down. I mean, it was just like everything coming down on you. If you can imagine what hell is like, magnified by 10. I couldn't see. You can see your hand in front of your face.
And I just started screaming for Merlin. I could hear him screaming back, and then we just encountered each other in a hallway, which was what was left of a hallway, I should say. We started searching for other survivors in the hallways, and one of the hallways was just thick with smoke. The door at the end was glowing red, so we knew there was fire down there. And my mind was more focused on looking for people. And we made it to the top floor. We saw fire personnel. They told us to evacuate. And as we came down, I knew I was in trouble because I couldn't breathe that well. And then once we got outside, I collapsed. I had thermal burns internally, and they rushed me down to the hospital, and they induced me to a coma. I woke up. It was Saturday. I don't recall anything in between.
Hector Ramirez, he's a train operator on the R line. I used to work with him.
They instructed myself and all other trains to continue in service, but shut off the air comfort and bypass Cortlandt Street World Trade Center. It's standard when there's light smoke just to bypass the station.
He and his conductor, they pulled the train into the Cortlandt Street with the intention of following orders and bypassing. And there were dozens and dozens of people on the platform, screaming and crying and asking for help.
Now, as I'm entering the station, this is Cortlandt Street World Trade Center, I started hitting the horn with a few short blasts, just to let people know to stand back from the edge. That's what we do as we enter the station that we're planning to bypass. I saw smoke as I approached the station. A lot of people were covering their faces with handkerchiefs, pieces of material, and just waving at me.
He called command center and said, I'm stopping this train and I'm getting these people on the train. I cannot leave them here.
There was this one person, it's like, I locked on their eyes for maybe just a second, but their eyes, it really told me everything I needed. These people were truly scared. Usually people are annoyed when we bypass a station, but these people were scared. I let my conductor know that we were going to stop, we're going to pick these people up, and what I tried to do is I tried to lead them to give me permission to stop. Basically let them know, listen, there's smoke down here, there's people down here, we need to get people down here to get them out. And my conductor was already getting the people on when command was like, yes, pick them up. And I was like, yes! we got as many people on as we could. Basically, the station was clear by then.
And he did. He got all those people on the train, got his train out of there, and I think his was the last train out of there. So if they didn't get on there with him, they were going to be there when that building came down. And he's not alone. There's a lot of people out there that went above and beyond.
There are 8 schools within 2, 3, 4 blocks of the World Trade Center. But those 8 schools held 8,000 kids. And what was miraculous about that day is that every single child within our watch was safely brought home by that night.
We're so close to those girls. You know, we're like a team. You know, we're like a family.
Margaret and Julia are paraprofessionals who took kids in wheelchairs, knowing that their lives were at risk, stayed with their kids who were in wheelchairs.
That was loud. That was in a helicopter. That was in a little plane by mistake. It wasn't foggy out there.
Y mientras estaba allí en esa situación, no es fácil usted poder oír decirle a una persona, yo no quiero morir. Cuando ella decía, Mami, I don't want to die. Yo le decía, tú no vas a morir, hija mía. Y ella me lo repetía y me lo repetía.
I'm screaming and shouting, please, someone help us. But I'm trying to follow the voices because we can't see anything.
These paras helped carry the kids from wheelchairs down the stairs, and they just said, we're going to keep these kids safe. This was the 4th day of school. The teachers barely knew their kids, and yet, because of their professionalism, because of their love of kids, because of their basic common sense, they were able to help shepherd all these children to safety.
every construction job in the city stopped. And construction workers and machinists and our railroad people carried every piece of tool and equipment that they had down to the pile.
The guys started to clear off the jobs in the city, and then before you know it, we were inundated with volunteers, all the other trades, looking for a way to get down to help. We actually had caravans going down, 5, 6 trucks with a police bus in the front, police bus in the back, and guys would go down and they just did what they had to do for as long as they could.
I don't know how I ended up on Canal and West Street, but I ended up on Canal and West, and this bus pulled up. It was like something you'd take to Atlantic City, like the 20-passenger bus. And a bunch of guys jumped out, and they had chains draped over their necks. And they said to me, I'm sitting on the corner, and they said to me, we're iron workers. Where'd this building fall? We're gonna go down and pick it up. And I laughed, and it was like, down there, right down there. And these guys, they were picking up chains that I don't even think, normal people could have even fathomed to pick them up. And they were all set to go. Where is it? Where do we go? And what do you think we need?
Looking out the doors from where I was, out the bay doors, you would see World Trade Center 4 and 2 would be on the side. But there was nothing there except a pile of debris. And I still to today cannot believe that place is down.
And I remember all the firemen and the police and the noise and everything, and it was like hollow, like there was no sound. Because I just looked at this and I says, I can't believe this. I just can't believe this.
There was a lot of people digging. I mean, you just ran right into the pile and did whatever you had to do. You're filling buckets with debris.
Wrapped around the steel beams and the girders and the huge pieces of concrete was every imaginable piece of debris. Trees, parts of cars, ducting, wires. All of that had to be cleared away by hand before they could actually move any of the heavy stuff.
They would be bringing down rubble, and when you're bringing down rubble, you're just passing it along, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden they'd say, personal effects, and like I said, it would be like somebody's personal planner or a wallet or something like that. It would kind of hit you, You realize that you're actually working like in a big tomb.
And there was so much stuff we couldn't even climb over. It was almost impossible to even walk over there. It was just overwhelming.
It's just backbreaking. I mean, you'd get to something that'd take 8 people to pull something up, and then you hand it hand over hand over this mountain of stuff. I mean, it was like very dangerous. People were falling and hurting themselves.
I went in, I was cutting steel. Beams were sticking out of the pile because it was a 4-story high pile of twisted steel and God knows what else.
And there would be times they thought this building on Liberty, they thought that was going to fall down. I think it's a 52-story building right on the edge of the site on Church Street. So they kept thinking this building was going to collapse. So they'd blow this horn 3 times, and I mean, everybody would just run. You'd be out in the middle of this debris, and you'd be trying to run off these, tripping over beams, and people were falling and getting hurt, and just scattering down these side streets, And then they'd say, okay, everybody back, to give an all-clear signal. And people just trudge right back in there and start handing out this debris.
It was terrible in one sense, and then it was great to see the other trades, the firemen, the police, and just really being Americans down there and doing the right thing to actually, with the right frame of mind, to see if we could find somebody. That was pretty much who we were down there. As bad as it was, we did the best we could. under the circumstances.
There was no organization the first 2 days especially. The people that were directing things were the iron workers, some of the subway workers, you know, construction crews. They got in and started things, and there was, you know, certain police and firemen, but most of the police and fire commands were just wiped out. You know, they were inside the World Trade Center when everything collapsed. You know, it was very hard to coordinate things.
It's just a lot of stuff. Everyone who was there and did what they had to do. I mean, there was a point where I was down with maybe tons of steel hanging over my own head, and my partner Danny Burns had to lay on my legs, and I was down inside a hole, burning steel out of a hole so that a fireman could go into a hole to investigate and see if there was anyone alive.
You'd uncover something, there'd be a hole, and everybody get their flashlights and reaching in and seeing if you see a hand or anything so that you could find somebody, or listening to see if anybody's making any noise or anything.
Had hundreds of workers, everything just shut down and quiet, and listen, everybody just listened. If they heard anything happen or look at anything, and nothing.
You couldn't tell what was going on in the zone. It was such a massive site of destruction. You couldn't even tell what was going on the other side of the rubble pile because you couldn't get there without walking blocks around.
It really was, you know, a source of pride for the New York Iron Workers, the Trade Center. And those guys know that that building, the core of the building and the outside of the building, is probably the heaviest steel that was ever used in any construction. And that if there were people trapped down there, that you would have to cut through steel to get to those people. And the guys who cut through steel are iron workers.
I come from a firefighter family, and 2 of my cousins were there when the building went down. You know, I had a reason to be there. I had family under there. They were just doing this out of their heart, and it made me feel really good.
I mean, I can't describe it, and I really can't even to this day really tell you exactly how I felt or what was going through my head other than just terrific. But that's where I had to be. I mean, that's where I had to be, and that's where everybody had to be. And that was the sense of the guys down there.
Over the days, you saw the iron workers and the carpenters and the electricians and the operating engineers, and all these people just pouring in, and I knew that I had to be there. I was down there doing what I had to do as a paramedic, but these people had a choice. They didn't have to. Nobody expected them to be there. Nobody said, come on down. These guys with hard hats and T-shirts, they just showed up.
Everyone was just pitching in, you know, every trade. And we ran into a bunch of guys that we knew, that we had worked with before, and we just started picking steel and throwing it on trucks.
We hear so much about the men at the site, and the one person that struck me most was this female welder. She just never stopped. I mean, it was really exhausting. We'd stop and sit on the plow, the bulldozers, and this woman was amazing. She just didn't stop. She was cutting pieces of steel all night long and just kept going. I wish I could find out who she was. She had a transit authority vest on, and I tried to find her. I went to the track quarters after that, to the different track quarters. I was never able to find her.
You know, we carried bodies out of there, and all of this. I was at one point carrying a body out and crossing rubble, EMS trucks flipped over, burned out fire truck, and you know, it was just a horrible mess.
This guy woke me up on the train, you know, and he asked me how things were going down there, and you know if there was any hope of finding anybody or anything. And, you know, I thought about it first because I was really depressed, but I said, did you know anyone that was lost down there? And he says, yeah, my cousin. And I said, well, there's still hope, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know what to say to the guy. I mean, I didn't want to You know, because I was kind of depressed that we weren't going to be finding anybody, or I didn't think we were going to be finding anything, but I didn't know what to say to the poor guy, you know what I mean? I didn't know.
We actually found a fireman that was trapped underneath a set of stairs. And thank God we found this man, this fireman, where we were able to do something. We felt helpless. We had so many guys trying to dig this man out so fast. We picked up pieces of steel. Took 4 of us just to pick it up, and we used that as pry bars to lift stuff up. He was screaming in pain, but it was nice to hear him screaming, because if he was screaming, he was alive.
One thing I can say that, you know, from being there every day now that I will never forget, and that is last week I was sitting in my truck waiting for my truck to be loaded, and there was a fireman and he was digging in the rubble, and you know, I was sitting in my truck watching him, and I began to cry because, you know, the look on his face, it was despair, just anguish, and, you know, I could imagine how he feels, and it's just, you know, it's terrible. Just to see them every day, it's like they're so tired, but, you know, they won't give up. They won't give up. And, you know, they're truly heroes for that, because the firemen, the policemen, they're not giving up.
I remember that you heard they found somebody, and Bobby Beamish was one of the guys that found someone alive.
We were able to recover one woman. I think that she was probably the last woman that came out of there alive. And as bad as it was, it kept you going, I'll say that. As miserable as it was, just to find one, and that's what you were there for. You had a whole new energy in you just from that recovery.
At that point, you probably got to see the furthest you'll ever see in the spectrum between good and evil, because you had the ugliest, most brutal thing that maybe has ever happened right there, and maybe the most beautiful thing you're ever gonna see with those guys up there. I mean, guys cut, bleeding, bruised, tired, exhausted, just digging in more. You know, hey buddy, you need a break. I'm not leaving. I gotta do more. I'm not leaving.
Even after we came out of that, after we were working and you came out of it, went back across to New Jersey, people were just standing there clapping, you know, when you came off, and that really meant a lot. And I just want to say thank you to them and everybody.
There were so many people that wanted to do something, you know, on the outside of the pile and just help the city try to get moving. And Nino, who had a little luncheonette down on Canal Street, decided he was going to open to start feeding some of the police and firemen.
So the people are committed. We have 1,000 volunteers here a week. You know, we're doing whatever it takes. We're slicing and dicing inside of tractor trailers. We're cooking on the street.
We got briskets here. We got ribs up there. People didn't want to leave the pile. You know, if you talk to some of those construction workers and police and firemen, they didn't want to leave. They were staying there. Whether they starved themselves or not, they were not going to leave.
We feel good about it. The first 2 weeks that we were here, it was like the only thing that really made us feel good, because, you know, to help and be a part of it, you just get through all that misery, you know, much easier.
When people found out that he was open and he was doing this, we started to get food donations and
beverage donation. So as the food was pouring in, Nino was saying, well, now where do I put it all? So Nino called us right away at the Machinists Union and asked me if we would be able to get some trailers. I immediately called United Parcel Service, who immediately said they would be willing to help. And within hours, they had trailers on site for Nino to store food in and dry goods in.
Obviously just took on a life of its own down here now. It's a great thing that he's doing. We're all pitching in. My daughter's here on weekends volunteering. Even my little 6-year-old hands out flags and does little things that he could do to get involved.
A bunch of guys from Louisiana decided to come up and bless all the rescue workers and whatnot from Ground Zero. So we called up, got set up with Nino's across the street, asked them what they wanted to have, and they heard about fried turkey, had never tasted it, so we decided to come in and do a bunch of fried turkeys, cook some Cajun rice, so that's what we're doing down here. Just a way to give back a little bit.
Today we're going to cook a crawfish stew. I have 35 pounds of peeled crawfish tails. We're going to make a big stew. It's going to be full to the top. We're going to serve about 250 people with it.
Like any other American, I felt the sorrow and the pain for the attack in New York City. It's my city.
You know, my local represents a lot of limousine drivers. I put the word out on the radio that day that the union wanted all our members to go home. Go back to your home, stay with your family. And the main reason I did that was because I was worried about the backlash, because our members are largely Muslim and 99% foreign-born, and if people were looking for a target, our members would be the target.
Even if you look like a Muslim, it was a problem because one of my neighbors, he is a Sikh. And the Sikh, they have the beard and they have the turban and everything. And he was shot that very afternoon, about 2 blocks from where I live. And he died right there.
You have to understand that our membership think of themselves as Americans, as New Yorkers, totally committed to life in America.
And when somebody asked me, where are you from? I said, I'm a New Yorker with a foreign accent.
They were volunteering in various ways to be helpful. A lot of them, because they had vehicles, were able to drive people, to help people that needed transportation.
This is the Red Cross. Yes.
Some of them were recruited to be translators. They all very much wanted to make their contribution, and a great many of them did.
It's entirely different from when I was first there. The amount of debris that's been removed it's not even comprehensible.
These people are trained to run heavy equipment. They're not trained to probably do some of the things they're doing and some of the things they've had to look at.
I'm down there every day. Every day I'm down there. Wherever they're digging and there are deep holes, we have to dump milling in so they can make some type of roadway, you know, so the trucks can get down in and bring more debris out. So, but I'm there every day. I'm still there. I'll be there tonight from 7 tonight until 7 in the morning.
You know, you get to a point where you just kind of look at it and you're not registering what you're looking at. It's just there, you know. You kind of numb yourself to it because if you think about it, it'll just it'll ruin you.
2 110-story buildings, just the mechanics and the utilities to keep a building like that going, the HVAC systems with the Freon, you got fluorescent lights, which can have PCBs in them, generators with fuel, which cause potential for benzene, lead, of course asbestos we've all heard about. There's just a bevy of hazards and chemicals that could be in those buildings and are in those buildings. And the way they were polarized, there was no, rhyme or reason on how these things are released.
We had respirators and masks and stuff, and people would take them off because they couldn't breathe after a while. I guess it would clog up so quickly, with the dust.
My
throat was killing me because we had inhaled a lot of this dusty.
We ate a lot of it.
We ate about it. if I had to describe it, it would be like pouring like a hot talcum powder down your throat. You know, and you just couldn't breathe.
So we all developed the World Trade Center cough. You know, eventually just everybody that was working on this pile eventually got a cough and sinus problems, you know.
These are the best of the best. These operators are good. They're working in very hazardous conditions. The heat down there from the steel is incredible. It's still hot because of the impaction. It's very unsure footing, unstable footing. It's amazing. We haven't had anybody really hurt bad or a fatality on this job yet, but we attribute that to the skill of the tradespeople down here.
One of the things that I think history will record is the way New York has responded. Nobody had to put out a call. Firemen rushed to the scene, whether they were on duty or not on duty. The police rushed to the scene. The EMS people rushed to the scene. Building and construction workers rushed to the scene because they knew that they would be needed to dig people out. It wasn't like anybody got on a bullhorn or a radio and said, look, we need help. People knew where their duty was, and they headed right down to the scene of the tragedy. Many of them, of course, ran into those buildings.
I had 27 neighbors who were cops and firemen that we lost. And there were funerals every day. And still till today, I can't talk about it. It's just, I went to as many memorials as I could. Everyone got tougher, and I just couldn't go to any.
You have to console yourself. Even though we lost 343 guys, we saved 25,000.
They really protected us. They really, they were heroes. They went in under the worst pressure you could think of, and said they were going to help. And they didn't run away from it. They ran into it, and we'll never forget that in the city.
We have in the local 100 several dozen members who lost family. If there's any good that came out of this, it's that it brought a lot of people together.
There was a brotherhood there. I mean, people were just, they didn't care where you came from, who you were, what you looked like. It was a brotherhood. It was a genuine brotherhood there. And it was a good feeling. The sad thing was that this had to happen for the brotherhood and humanity to begin to shine.
In the hours after this crisis, what you saw was people coming together, whether it was coming to feed us, to clothe us, to give us water, or even if it was just standing on a corner with a sign saying thank you. This is an emotional time for us all, because look, you know we needed the strength to keep going back. It's a difficult time. Those people on the corner gave us that strength.
If we could capture how people work to each other the week after the tragedy and continue even half of that spirit of giving and that spirit of goodness, I don't think there could be a city that could rebuild itself quicker than we will.
We built this city, and we're going to continue to build this city, and we're going to continue doing our part.
And once the area has been cleaned, it will be a rebuilding process. Well, who will be doing that rebuilding? It will still be those very same workers. There'll be carpenters, there'll be electricians, there'll be masons, there'll be iron workers that will need to do the rebuilding.
The one great thing is that we showed the world that New York is a lot tougher than they thought we were. It showed that New Yorkers have a great heart and an even greater humanity about them. And this is real history. I think people will get a little solace out of the fact that America really came together after it. Showed how big our heart really was.
I was never more proud of being a labor leader in this city than I was that week, and still today. There was nothing that we felt we couldn't do, and still till today there's nothing we feel we couldn't do. You know, United We Stand means more today than it did any other day.
It was unbelievable what I saw there, how people in New York City came together. I've been doing this type of work for a while, and people say that New York is a rough town, that nobody cares. And I started to believe that at one time. But after September 11th, the unity that I seen by all the public sector and private sector employees was unbelievable. And it has brought the city back together. And we need to move on now to rebuild this city. And we will rebuild this city and make it what it once was and even better.
I have absolutely no doubt that we will rebuild, but more than that, our spirit was not broken. More than that, we will return to what we do best, and that is to work hard, to be productive, to raise our families. New York will be what New York has always been. It'll be a beacon of hope to how this world can work together, produce together, build a decent life together.